Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about warriors. So there is warrior 1, warrior 2, warrior 3. Warrior 1 I've already talked about in Surya Namaskar B, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'll link it down below. So in Sun Salute B, warrior 1 has a prominent role to play. Warrior 2 I haven't yet covered. I will cover that in a subsequent video, but of course I'll cover it today. Warrior 3 is another warrior that's actually easier to get into from warrior 1. So let's get started. The easiest way to get into a lot of these things is from downward dog, and that might be how you go in from your sequences that your teachers implement. So I'm going to do that as well. Let's clear off our space of props. I've covered props in a previous video as well. I'll link that down below. My basic props are always within reach. Blocks, blankets, straps, they're all here. So if we get in, we do that bit. Here we are. So let's start from Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. When you get into your down dog, your feet are slightly parallel. Your feet are pigeon-toed, slightly pigeon-toed, parallel to the long sides of the mat. Take your right foot. You can either float it up or you can step it by your right thumb, depending on what the accessibility for you is. And the left heel is going to go down on the mat. So right heel, left heel are in line. You can imagine sometimes you have mats that have a line down the middle, so you can place your heels on the mat. But sometimes that might not work for you, in which case it's better to have your feet a little bit wider. As you inhale, float your arms up. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take your ribs, square them off to the short end of the mat. In warrior 1, your front knee is over your front ankle. So for me, it's my right knee over my right ankle. Your hands come up. You're going to spin your biceps in towards one another. Firm the triceps on the outside. Biceps the inside, triceps on the outside. You're spinning your pinkies in. So if you were to look at this from the front, it looks like this, where your ribs are squared up, but your hips cannot be because they're not in line with one another. So you're bringing your arms into one another, and here are my pinkies. So this is warrior 1 from the front. Here is warrior 1 from the side. Now, very often you might go from warrior 1 to warrior 3. The best way to do that is to come onto the ball of the back foot. I'm going to scooch back a tiny bit. So from your warrior 1, get onto the ball of the left foot. Your arms continue to come forward, and you're going to lean forward, float your left leg. So floating that leg at hip height, making sure that I'm going to break it down a little bit. So your left leg is going to be hip height. So as you float it up, point those toes down. Your left foot is flexed. Your arms are pointing forward. So just imagine that you have a straight line of energy and trying to be heavy through that left hip to ensure that your hip bones are equidistant from the ceiling. So here we are. Our arms are pointing forward. You can also interlace your hands, point your index fingers forward. This is your warrior 3. And you can come back to warrior 1, float your arms up, return your left heel back. So that was warrior 1 into warrior 3. Another thing you might often do in class is go from warrior 1 to warrior 2. So let's first talk about warrior 2. So warrior 2 is quite different from warrior 1 because you're actually going to have your legs facing the long side of the mat. So instead of facing the short side of the mat, you're actually facing the long side of the mat. Okay? So when you're facing the long side of the mat, the way the setup is that this is a longer warrior setup. It's about maybe 4 feet from foot to foot. And this time, your front heel bisects the middle of the arch of the back foot. So if you imagine a line, it's going from the heel to the middle of the arch. The back foot is tilted so that the big toe of the back foot is slightly tilted towards the front of the mat. So you never want to have your foot turning out. This is not your warrior 2. That's really bad, right? You saw I was starting to lose balance. Your think about the fact that your ankle is connected to your knee, is connected to your hip. So if you remember those songs from when you were little, every bone is connected to every other bone. I can't think of it right now, but that's a little song. Since everything is connected and our hip is facing this way, we can't have the back foot turning out. That's just not going to work. So that's your back leg. The front, again, your knee is over your ankle, but imagine that you're trying to actually open up. Imagine there's a wall right here, so you're trying to press your hips into the wall. So your hips are no longer facing the short end of the mat. They're facing the long end of the mat. So remember, your hip bones are right here. If you have, imagine if you have flashlights on your hip bones, you're facing the long side of the mat. Then you add your arms, and then you're going to turn your gaze, your drishti, towards the middle finger of your front foot. If your front hand, not your foot, this is your hand. So your drishti or gaze, your drishti is towards the front middle finger. Your drishti is towards the middle finger of your front hand. For me, it's my right hand. So this is my drishti. Also, if you look down in Warrior Two, make sure that your knee isn't going in, so you're not falling in. It's actually coming out, so it's in line with the second or third toe. Also, make sure that your knee doesn't go so far that you can't see your toes. You should be able to see your toes. So these are ways that you can check in with yourself. Make sure you can see the toes. It's in line with the toes. That's actually guiding where your hips are at any given time when you're in Warrior Two. Your arms are parallel to the ground. And this is a pretty active pose. This is something you'll see quite often. From Warrior Two, to go from one side to the other, you would simply rotate your feet. And you always want to check in for a moment. These are your Warrior Two. This is your Warrior Two foundation. Some of the things you might do quite often is a reverse warrior. You might go into extended side angle. You might go from Warrior Two into Utthita Trikonasana, in which case you would straighten out your front knee, bend at the hips, lean forward, and there's your Utthita Trikonasana. So these are all things from Warrior Two. Also from Utthita Trikonasana, you can then bend your front knee, go into your Ardha Chandrasana or half moon. These are all your basic things from Warrior Two. Warrior One, if we go back to Warrior One, is going to be facing, I'm staying on the same foot, so my left foot is forward. My ribs are squared off to the short end of the mat. I realize I have a big mat, but this is the short end of my mat when I'm facing this way. Warrior One, here we go. You always want to put the weight into the pinky toe side, lifting up the arch ever so slightly on that back foot. Here is, I'm going to make myself a little bit of room. Here's my Warrior One. If I simply lean forward, come into the ball of the back foot. This is my Warrior Three. You can also have your standing split, hands on the ground, point your back foot towards the ceiling. This is your standing split. You could keep going. You could then swing up, bring your hands in front of your heart, come into Figure Four. You can also do Eagle. So many things you can do just by starting from your Warrior One. So Warrior One, your ribs are facing forward. Warrior Two, they're facing the long side of the mat. And that's about it. Thanks so much. Have a great day.